Hi there, welcome back to my channel. It's James here. I hope you're doing okay. We're going to look at my two main plant group passions today. We're going to talk about some of the new Hoya that I have sort of brought into my collection over the past couple of weeks/months. A couple of them I've had for a little while. And then we're going to give some of my aroids an update that I haven't focused on for a little while, because I've been seeing them over the past couple of weeks and thinking, you deserve a little bit more attention. So we're going to give them a little bit of a focus. Some of them I've had for a long time, some of them a little bit less. But yeah, we'll just go through and have a little chat, see how they're doing, little care tip things, nothing super structured today, just a little haul and then just a little growth update. I'm wearing a t-shirt from On the Ledge podcast. I have nothing to do with the podcast at all, but I'm just wearing it because it seems kind of fitting to wear plants when talking about plants. There we go. Have a look if you want to. It's a really great podcast. Beep, 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 beep. So let's jump straight into the Hoya. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are relatively new in my collection. 3 of these you will have seen in my grow tent video, which I did a couple of last week sometime. Something like that. So if you watched that, you would have seen 3 of these already, but a couple of them will be new. And as we go through, I'll kind of talk about how easy they are to find, because none of them are super rare as far as Hoya go, but they're still relatively challenging to get sometimes. Let's move this guy. Okay, jumping straight into it, we'll start with the one in water. So this is just in a little teacup. It's a Hoya macrophylla albo marginata, so with the white sort of creamy variegated margin. I totally understand why this is such a popular Hoya. It's such an amazing textured leaf. Is it going to focus? Yeah. And it's got like a really nice red border and then that cream variegation. Roots are doing super well, so this is going to be moved into perlite very soon. When I got it, I just wanted to give it a couple of weeks in water just to get some better roots, but it's doing super well. Just been on my south-facing windowsill, enjoying it. All of these Hoya, no, that's not true. Most of these Hoya are on my south-facing windowsill. A couple of them are in the grow tent, and the ones that are on the south-facing windowsill currently are doing better because the nights aren't too cold and they're just getting such a high light intensity, which is very good for them. So staying in on the macrophylla train, this is the reverse variegated macrophylla, so it's the one that has the cream variegation on the inside of the leaf. Otherwise very similar. These leaves are a little bit dull. I think maybe it was grown in very high light, or I don't know. We'll see how it goes with the next couple of leaves, but it's still very pretty. Both of these are very easy to find at the moment. If you check out eBay, most sellers who specialize in Hoya are selling some form of the macrophylla, whether it's the full green form or not. I got this small cutting, I think, for about £6, and I forget, but it was not much more for this. So they're quite easy to get. It's so interesting moving into Hoya. I've said this before, but moving into Hoya from the rare aroid world, where the prices are very high currently, which is fine. It's how it is. But you come into the Hoya world and you're like, wow, that's cheap. What's wrong with it? But yeah, nothing is wrong with it. It just hasn't boomed yet in the same way. Okay, next Hoya that is relatively new to my collection is this one I thought I hated. This was the Hoya that I hated the most before I got into Hoya. I would see it and I'd be like, oh, like there's some Hoya that I like, but like this one is just so basic and but I really like it now. So it just shows you how things change. Yeah, it's the variegated Hoya carnosa compacta. I think people also call it the Hindu rope, but it's very interesting. Like I also find it interesting. You can see there's a new leaf at the top there, and I think they come through like normal carnosa shape, and then I guess they buckle and twist as they get more mature. Yeah, quite difficult to find actually. I bought 2 previously from the same seller. They were imported from Spain, but it was a little bit delayed because of the whole situation at the moment. So it arrived, the 2 plants just died, they rotted, lost all their leaves. So this is take 2. And it's already doing amazingly. There's new growth there, which is always a good sign. And it's just in a very well draining potting medium in a tiny little pot. Yeah. So far, I'm definitely getting better at caring for my Hoya and understanding what they need. But so far, my main 2 rules are loads of light, like so much light, way more than you think they'd need. And yeah, no water, unless they're in passive hydro, unless they're in a sort of a leca or perlite situation. I let them get so dry before I water them, and that seems to keep them growing, keep them happy, keep them healthy. Okay, next one. I have another Hoya pubicalyx, but this is the Splash. So it's exactly the same, essentially. I think even the inflorescence, the blooms are very similar. There might be a color difference. I'm not exactly sure which variety this is, but they're essentially the same plant, but it just has a much higher sort of splash ratio on the leaf. And I think, from what I've read, the splash is literally just a gap between the upper surface of the leaf and the tissue below. So yeah, it's you can, yeah, be careful with it, because if you give it a little scratch, I've never done it, but I can already see it happening here. If you run your finger over it, you can kind of see it shifting. So be a little bit cautious with that. Yeah, it's just like a little bubble underneath the surface of the leaf, but I think it's super pretty. It's so weird, isn't it, that the things that in the plant world we think are cool, like bubbles under the leaf and variegation and stuff, very strange. But yeah, very cute. Nice little Hoya. This was what it was sent in, so I've just left it in there because it was happy. Now onto the 3 Hoya that are in the grow tent. The growth rate is definitely slower for these Hoya, but I just wanted to keep them in because the light isn't so intense. I'm going to get a shelf for my grow tent just to raise the Hoya up, so when it gets really, really cool next to the window, because over the winter that position is not going to be comfortable for the Hoya, it will be way too cold. So I'll shift all of those Hoya into the grow tent on a much higher level, much closer to the grow light, and hopefully we'll be able to keep the growth rate going. But for now, I just want to keep them in slightly higher humidity because they were unrooted cuttings. This is a Hoya Croniana Eskimo, so a silver splashed, again, it's a running theme. Silver splashed Hoya. Yeah, it had a very, very small bit of stem, basically no aerial roots, so I put it in perlite inside my grow tent to just try and get everything going, and it's doing really well. You can see maybe that little line, that little stick here is new growth, so it's doing okay. Yeah, I like it. Very, very long, sort of hangy plants from what I've seen as they mature. This one's interesting. This is Hoya obovata amela. So it is a variegated Hoya. Again, it's very difficult to see actually in this particular one, so I'll find a picture of it and I'll put it up for you to look at. But essentially you should be able to see there's a slight lightness around the margin of the leaf. That is the variegation. This is a bad example of it. This plant and the Croniana, I actually had to order twice. I ordered it once during the heat wave in Europe when I ordered it back to my parents' house in France, and it got stuck in the post for some reason. And yeah, so I had to reorder it. But the previous plant that she sent me, even though it was dead and burnt and destroyed by the heat, there were much more pronounced markings, so the variegation was much more obvious. So this might just be a slightly less obvious example of the plant, and we'll see how it does as it puts out new leaves. But yeah, final Hoya, which is relatively new to my collection in that I haven't really spoken about it before aside from my grow tent video. I really, really like this one. This is the Hoya maniparensis variegated, so it is a beautiful, weird little plant. The non-variegated version really, really caught my attention, and then I saw this and I was like, ooh, that is definitely a Hoya that we want to add to our collection. Yeah, it's really weird. It's very different from a lot of Hoya in that the inflorescence, it doesn't manifest in the same way. I'll put a picture up of it. Most of the other Hoya that I have, I think all of them, have a very similar bloom structure. So it's like a little stem and then a bunch of blooms sticking out. But this one, the blooms seem to come out from very, very tight into the stem and kind of almost like a Dischidia. I think they have a similar flower structure. Not that I have any, but from what I've seen. Yeah, and as it matures, the lobes, sort of the outer lobes on these plants, they get like ears, and it's really, really cool. So I'll try and find a mature picture of that as well. But yeah, I haven't seen very many around. So if you have any pictures of, or you know anyone who has a more mature specimen, I'd love to see it. I'm a little bit nervous about the new growth. It's looking very green, but we'll see. I'm sure it will come through. Fingers crossed. Anyway, regardless, it's been fun to have, regardless of what happens. So yeah, Hoya maniparensis with some variegation. Now we're going to move on to my little aroid update. So these are some aroids that I've had, some of them for a long time, some of them for less amount of time, but they're just doing really beautifully, and there was no other opportunity really to show them to you, so I just wanted to give them a second here. There are only 5 of them, so we'll go through it quite quickly. I'll just tell you how they've been doing and what I'm doing to get them happy, because all of them are quite happy at this point. So the first one is quite easy to find one at the moment. It is a philodendron Florida Ghost. This is the mother plant that I first bought. So I got this plant and I've cut it just so many times at the moment. So if I'd left it, it would be quite large at this point, but I have not. I've cut it. So this is how it is doing at the moment. These new white leaves are new growth. As you can see with this one, it is too white. This happens sometimes. It's happened to some of my plants previously. The leaf comes through pure white and it doesn't transition to green. So the idea with a Florida Ghost, if you've not seen it before, is that leaves will come through white or lime or cream or yellow sometimes. It seems to range quite a lot depending on the conditions you have it in. And then ideally they fade over time to like either a solid green or this kind of minty green like this with a little bit of white left. I've got an example of both. So that's like a minty green, and then the smallest leaves are quite dark. So yeah, the idea is that it kind of shifts through that pattern. Doesn't matter. It's gonna, I think, probably disappear completely eventually because this has been spreading quite quickly. But the second leaf that came through, you can already see compared to that first one, it's a little bit mintier. It came through the same color, but it is already starting to turn green. So that's what we want, for the leaf to come through a beautiful white and then transition through to green. And it's beautiful. Yeah, like I said, I've cut this so many times, so I'm really, really impressed with it that it has continued to grow so nicely. And seemingly every time I cut it, the growth comes back more vibrantly white. And when I let it grow a little bit more, they tend to come back a little bit more sort of minty over time. So yeah, if you have a large plant and you're wanting to stimulate more white growth and you've run out of other options, maybe think about cutting it and have a little play around with that, because it seems to work for me every time I've cut it. Yeah, really, really lovely plant, just in terracotta, well draining soil. I water it and fertilize it every time I water. Lovely. Okay, let's get the phyllos out of the way. We've got 3 philodendron, 2 anthurium, and then we're done for today. So, second philodendron, this is a beautiful one. This is, I have some people have seen it at the back there. It's not here today, but sometimes I have a very large philodendron there with really, really big sort of plate-like leaves. That is currently sold as a philodendron pastazanum silver form. It's not a mame, it's not a Plough-manii. It is yeah, something either a no ID philodendron or something very, very similar to a Plough-manii. We're not exactly sure what it is. This, however, was sold to me as a Plough-manii. I'm a little bit distrustful of the seller, so who knows, but it seems to fit all the characteristics, and this is its beautiful new leaf. So it arrived with this one. It's actually put out a lot of random new growth over the summer, lots of which I've had to cut because it had some pest issues. I was actually growing this outside in my greenhouse outside for most of the year, and it's done really, really well. Yeah, the size of this caterpillar is just insane, so I'm sure that this new leaf, which is already emerging there, is going to be something quite special. But yeah, it's looking beautiful. Growing much faster than I expected it to, which is nice. Little dead leaf there. But yeah, very, very happy with it. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep you updated as well. Probably post about it on my Instagram soon. And hopefully we'll get to a similar size as the silver one, because it's just, it's definitely one of my favorite plants at the moment. So satisfying. This is, need some water. This is Philodendron White Knight. I always confuse White Knight and White Wizard. I don't know why. I know the differences, but in my brain I confuse them. So the White Wizard has pure, just straight white, straight green stems and petioles. It's just a green plant with the similar white variegation. The White Wizard has a sort of candy cane, burgundy, red and white stem, which is very, very pretty. It's doing really nicely. Obviously you can see where the light is coming from, but it's nice, it's happy. I've been feeding the aerial roots back down into the soil. I will give it a pole and some support in a second, but in a little bit, sorry. But it is doing very, very well for now. There's some nice variegation potential in there, although it's kind of skipped a bit. There was a lovely variegated leaf, then some relatively green ones, and then a bit more variegation up there. Still, it's very, very happy. Beautiful plant. Not too hard to find at the moment. I do see it around quite a lot on eBay, just as rooted cuttings, and on the Facebook groups. So if you're not on the Facebook groups, it's a little bit intense sometimes, but there are really good plant options that pop up there. So have a little look. Onto the Anthurium. So we've just got 2. This I'm so happy with because it had such a sad moment. This is an Anthurium forgetii, and it completely died back. So I got it from the rare plant shop last year at some point, I forget when, and it had really weird little crumpled leaves, which was fine. It was a healthy plant. But then just before winter, everything died back. Everything rotted. It mulched all the way back to the stem there. You can see where it, maybe, I don't know if you can, but you can see where it died back. And all of this is new growth since last year. And I have it in like the least good position for any plant. It's like right at the bottom of my indoor greenhouse. It only gets natural light. It's quite high humidity, but yeah, it could definitely do with better conditionings, and yet it seems like it's thriving, so I'm not going to move it anytime soon. That new leaf is gorgeous. And there's another one just poking through at the moment, so very exciting. Yeah, loads of aerial roots shooting down into the growing medium, so that's fantastic. Anthurium forgetii, absolutely one of my favourite Anthurium at the moment. Second Anthurium, which likewise is in very poor conditioning, and seemingly they love it. I think it's just the humidity. They don't seem like they need massively bright light. This is another Anthurium that I bought last year, but I bought it as a tiny plug, so it had leaves which were probably about this long, very, very small. And it is now doing really nicely. This is an Anthurium villenorum. I haven't had to say that for a long time. Anthurium villenorum. Look at that big leaf. There's actually one coming through at the moment there. Normally, because I think there are 3 plants here, so 3 small plants that were rooted together, and they normally come through with a new leaf all at once. We'll be getting, this is why it's so full as well, because there are 3 plants in there. But I'll be getting 3 new leaves probably within the next couple of weeks. It's just very satisfying now that it's settled in, and now that I've given it a little bit more space to grow into. So yeah, Anthurium villenorum, very, very pretty. And there you go, that is the last one for my little aroid update, my little Hoya haul. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to see updates on these plants, check out my Instagram at slugplants. I post there relatively regularly. If you want to see more content like this and other stuff, which will be more interesting, I promise, subscribe to this channel, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you didn't enjoy, and I will see you very soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.